Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? Maybe it was easier that way. Maybe it was safer, because to look at her meant to notice her, and to notice her was to invite the wrath of Petty Officer. Stood small in her uniform, barely 5'3", her frame dwarfed by the towering recruits and the man packing before them. The sun pressed down on the training grounds at Clearwater, Florida, turning the air into a furnace. Sweat clung to her skin, but she did not flinch. Not when the veins in his neck bulged. Not when his spit struck her cheek. Not when his voice carried across the platoon like a blade, cutting her down with every word. "This isn't some college sorority," he barked, circling her like a predator sizing up prey. "You think because Daddy paid your way through life, you can just waltz in here and play Navy." She did not answer because recruits weren't allowed to answer until asked. Her gaze fixed forward, a single point of stillness while 23 others watched with relief. She was today's target, not them. "Stand at attention when I'm talking to you," he snapped. She already was, spine straight, eyes locked, jaw steady. The humiliation burned, but not a single tremor escaped her posture. "Sir, yes, sir." Her voice was even, controlled. Smile was cruel. "Look at you, barely holding yourself up. What made you think you belong here?" The answer came without thought. "To serve my country, sir." Laughed, and it was not a kind laugh. "Serve your country. You'll be lucky to serve coffee in the mess hall." Behind him, the obstacle course glistened with mud and sweat, the ropes hanging like nooses in the humid air. He turned, already knowing what came next. "Today's your lucky day. You get to run it again, solo." The platoon groaned as one. Everyone knew what this meant. He wasn't just testing her. He was punishing all of them. "If she doesn't beat yesterday's time," shouted, "everyone drops for 50. Had run it yesterday in 12 minutes, a miracle for her size. Today he demanded 10. He blew the whistle. And she ran. The wall came first, tall and splintered with sweat-dark wood. Her hands found the holds others might have slipped on. She pulled herself up, swung over, landed hard, and kept moving. Behind her, voices carried, pathetic, "Come on, China doll. Hurry up." She didn't respond. She didn't break. Not when she dove into the mud crawl, the barbed wire a hand's width from her back. Not when her arm slipped and her face plunged into the muck. Gasps rippled through the watching recruits, stood over her like a king at execution. And that, ladies, is why we have standards. For a moment she lay still in the sludge. Mud caked her face, filled her eyes, stung her lips. But when she rose, it was not defeat in her expression. Something colder flashed there, something harder. She wiped her eyes and kept crawling. 10 seconds left. She was still moving when the whistle blew, still pulling herself through the mire. Grinned, savoring the moment. "You failed not just yourself, your entire team." The platoon dropped to the dirt for push-ups, 23 bodies heaving in unison. Moved to join them, but's hand caught her shoulder. "Not you, you get to watch." And so she stood, mud dripping from her uniform, as her platoon cursed her between breaths. "Thanks a lot, China doll." The words hit like stones, but her face betrayed nothing. No anger, no shame, just that same strange stillness, controlled, calculated. Petty Officer Manning, clipboard in hand, watched from the edge of the field. She'd been watching for days. There was something different about her, something practiced. Later in the sterile classroom, sat in the back, still streaked with dried mud. Leaned toward her, his voice a whisper sharp enough to cut. "Why don't you just quit already? Nobody wants you here." "I earned my place," she murmured. He smirked. "What did you do, sleep your way in?" Her lips curved, the faintest, strangest smile. Not pained, not angry, almost as if she knew something he didn't. Manning's eyes flicked to her then, studying her too long. "Pay attention, recruits. This will be on tomorrow's exam." Took notes with mud-stained fingers. Her script was neat, precise. She could have been anyone, she could have been no one. Later in the showers, Wilson spotted the scar. a jagged line running along her ribs, not the kind of scar a kitchen accident left. What happened there? His hand covered it instantly. Kitchen accident, something like that. Wilson smirked. Better toughen up if you can't even handle a little cooking. But Wilson wasn't entirely convinced. None of them were. That night scrubbed the bathroom tiles with a toothbrush while watched from the doorway. His eyes bored into her, venom dripping from every word. You know why you're here. Because I failed to complete the course in time, sir. No, he sneered. You're here because you don't belong here. The sooner you figure that out, the better for everyone. She looked up, met his gaze directly. I won't quit, sir. And for a heartbeat, he faltered. When he left, she continued scrubbing, but her movements were different, mechanical, efficient, like someone trained to perform under pressure. Across the base, Manning sat at her desk, his file open on her screen. Graduate, perfect exam scores, impeccable medical history, everything neat, too neat. The gaps told a story of their own. Lay awake that night long before reveille. 4 hours of sleep, if that. But her eyes stayed fixed on the ceiling, her posture unnervingly calm. By dawn, she was ready. In formation, pushed them past breaking. Push-ups, sit-ups, more. He circled, waiting for weakness. Getting tired yet? No, sir. 10 more just for you. She did them, perfect form, steady breath. When it ended, most of the platoon collapsed, stood, upright, breathing heavy but standing. That was when it happened. Barked, Commander wants to see you now. A ripple moved through the ranks. Commander, the executive officer. Recruits didn't get summoned to her office unless something was wrong. Muttered as she passed, maybe they finally realized you don't belong here. Didn't respond. She walked steady, sun glinting off the shoreline as she crossed the base. She knocked, entered. Commander was waiting, so was Manning. Recruit, reporting as ordered, ma'am. At ease, studied her with eyes sharp enough to cut steel. Do you know why you're here? No, ma'am. Glanced at Manning. There are concerns about Petty Officer's treatment of you. Would you say it's been fair? It was a test. Complain and she would be labeled weak. Endure and the torment would continue. Petty Officer is preparing us for naval service, ma'am. That's not what I asked. Hesitated just for a moment. Then, permission to speak freely, ma'am. Granted. He believes I don't belong. His methods are designed to make me quit. I will not quit, ma'am. Something flickered across face, and Manning. Your scores were exceptional, Manning said softly. Yet he targets your weaknesses. Do you know why? Perhaps, said carefully, because of my appearance. I've encountered that before. Leaned forward. Where? A pause too long. College athletics, ma'am. It wasn't the whole truth. Manning knew it, but they let it slide. And when dismissed her, Manning called after her. That scar, how did you get it? Froze then. Childhood accident. Fell through a glass table when I was 12. The lie sat heavy in the air. Manning didn't believe it, but she only nodded. Later in the pool, strapped a weighted belt around her waist. 10 extra pounds. Enough to drown someone already in fatigues. Regulations forbade it. Manning protested, ignored her. Dove without complaint, and what happened stunned everyone. She didn't just survive, she thrived. Her strokes adjusted, her breathing patterns shifted, controlled, calculated, like she had done it 100 times before. Satisfaction turned to confusion. When the whistle finally blew, climbed out, towel in hand. Manning whispered, that technique, that's not Navy training. His answer was quiet. My father taught me. He believed in being prepared for all contingencies. And in the barracks that night, when the others whispered rumors, that she was a plant, that she was hiding something, polished her boots with perfect precision. She did not answer. But in her locker, hidden beneath the folded uniform, was a leather case. A secret, a truth waiting. And as she lay awake again, her father's voice echoed, "There will come a time when you'll have to decide whether to remain hidden or stand revealed. Choose that moment carefully. Once made, such choices cannot be undone." The moment was coming, faster than she expected. What did Commander Blackwood see that made him stop cold? Hadn't expected the inspection to change anything. For 2 hours, the recruits scrubbed and polished like their futures depended on it, because they did. Every tile, every corner, every item aligned to regulation. For her, it was the bathroom, the hardest, most thankless job given to her deliberately by a setup, a trap. But when the commander walked through, his white-gloved hands sliding across gleaming surfaces, he stopped at her post. He paused longer than expected, looked at her, then at the spotless bathroom. Then he noticed something else. "Recruit," his voice was steady, calm, but sharp enough to cut glass. "What is that on your back?" Her body stiffened. The light was cruel that morning, falling at just the wrong angle. The damp fabric of her undershirt had clung too closely, revealing faint shadows beneath. Blackwood stepped closer. His tone carried no anger, no accusation, just authority. "Is that a tattoo?" His heart beat once hard against her ribs. The scar Wilson had seen, the belt in the pool, the endless whispers, all of it had built to this moment. She could lie, she could hide, but the commander wasn't asking, he was commanding. "Yes, sir." "Naval regulations are clear," he said evenly. "Tattoos must not be visible while in uniform." "It is not normally visible, sir," she replied carefully. "Only when the fabric is wet." Blackwood's eyes narrowed. "What is its nature?" She hesitated. The pause was deliberate, calculated, too long. Then, "It's a family emblem, sir, military history." "Family emblem," he repeated, his voice giving nothing away. "Show me." Manning shifted beside him, uneasy. "Sir, perhaps." "It's all right," interrupted quietly. "I don't mind." And with controlled movements, she adjusted her collar, lowering it just enough to reveal the edge of a dark marking between her shoulder blades. The top of an anchor, intertwined with something else, symbols circling it like forgotten runes. Blackwood leaned closer, and his face changed. A silence stretched, heavy, uneasy. "Everyone out," he ordered suddenly. His voice was sharper now, edged with something uncharacteristic. "I need to speak with Recruit privately." His protest began, but Blackwood's glare silenced him instantly. Manning ushered the others out, her curiosity barely hidden, and then the door closed. Stood straight, still as stone. "Show me the entire tattoo," Blackwood said. His voice was quieter now. Not commanding, not accusatory, something else. She turned, slowly unbuttoned the top of her uniform, pulled the fabric just far enough to reveal the full design. The anchor, the trident, the circle of unfamiliar symbols, a sigil that looked older than it should. Blackwood froze. Then, in a voice that seemed not meant for her at all, he whispered, "That emblem it belongs to." Said nothing. Silence was safer than confirmation. "How old are you?" 23, sir." "And your father, Lieutenant Commander? He served on the Wayfinder during Silent Harbor." Her eyes flickered. "Yes, sir." Blackwood stepped back, hand running over his face as if to ground himself. "I knew your father, I was there, but that tattoo isn't given to family, only to operatives." His eyes met his, calm, steady. "I know what it's for, sir." He understood then. He didn't need her to say it. "You're—" She neither confirmed nor, but her silence was answer enough. Blackwood's posture stiffened. His voice regained its edge, but the tremor underneath betrayed him. "Report to my office at 1300 hours. Tell no one. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." When he opened the door again, his expression was unreadable. The commander's mask was back in place. "This bathroom passes inspection. In fact, it's exemplary." Smirk faltered. The inspection finished, routine restored, but Manning saw it. She saw the subtle difference in how Blackwood spoke to now, a note of respect, something she hadn't heard before. The platoon, though, saw only mystery. Whispers spread like wildfire. Why had Blackwood kept her alone? Why had he emerged looking unsettled? "She's getting kicked out," muttered. "No recruit gets summoned like that and stays." "Then why did the commander look like he'd seen a ghost?" Wilson shot back. Ignored them all. She returned to her duties, folding her uniform, aligning her boots, her face unreadable, her movements precise. But inside, her father's voice echoed again. "Once revealed, there is no going back." By the time the clock ticked toward 1300, curiosity had reached a fever pitch. Even Manning was restless, waiting outside Blackwood's office when knocked. Inside, the air was different. Blackwood was not alone. Manning was there too, but another figure sat across from him, a woman with captain's insignia, her gaze sharp, assessing. Naval intelligence. "Recruit," Blackwood said. "This is Captain Vance." Stood at attention. "Reporting as ordered, sir." "At ease," Vance said, though her eyes never left. "Or should I call you by your actual rank?" The silence hung heavy. Manning shifted uncomfortably. Blackwood's face betrayed nothing. "For the purposes of this conversation," said at last, her voice measured, calm, unyielding. "Recruit is appropriate, ma'am." Vance's lips twitched in the faintest ghost of a smile. Very diplomatic. Then to Blackwood, "The tattoo, it's genuine." "Yes," he said, "unmistakable she's." Manning's brows knit. "I don't understand. What is?" Vance and Blackwood exchanged a look. The kind of look that closed doors, that sealed lips. But then Vance nodded once. "Petty Officer Manning, what I am about to tell you is classified at the highest level. You will not repeat it outside this room. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." Vance continued, "Was a specialized intelligence program, officially disbanded in 2015. Operatives trained for deep cover, embedded missions, places conventional forces couldn't reach. The tattoo is their insignia. It was never given to family, only operatives, active field operatives." Manning's mouth parted. "That's impossible, she's only 23. Vance's eyes shifted back to, "And yet." The silence was answer enough. "Would you care to explain, recruit?" Blackwood asked carefully. Breathed once, deep, steady, then spoke. "The program was not disbanded, it was restructured, a legacy initiative. Children of operatives were recruited early. I was activated at 19. Manning shook her head in disbelief. "Activated, you mean?" "Operative," Vance finished quietly. "Which begs the question, why are you here?" His eyes met hers, steady, calm. "Training evaluation, ma'am, under the authority of Admiral." The name shifted the air. Both Blackwood and Vance tensed. Blackwood pressed the intercom. "Secure line, Pacific Command, Admiral." And as the room waited, sat perfectly still, her mask unbroken. But in her silence, something spoke louder than words. She wasn't just a recruit. She wasn't just a soldier. She was something else, something no one expected. And now they knew. What did the Admiral say that changed everything? The secure line buzzed in Blackwood's office, its faint hum filling the silence like a warning bell. Manning shifted in her seat, glancing between the commander and Captain Vance. Sat perfectly still, posture straight, hands resting lightly on her knees. She didn't move, didn't fidget, didn't blink more than necessary. When Admiral's voice finally cut through the static, the room seemed to tighten. "Blackwood, I wasn't expecting your call." "Sir," Blackwood began, careful, measured. "We've identified a recruit carrying insignia. She claims authorization under your authority." The silence on the other end stretched. "I see," the Admiral said at last, his tone unreadable. "And Captain Vance is present." "Yes, sir," Vance answered. "Then we can dispense with pretense," said. "The operative's presence is legitimate. She is operating under my direct orders." Manning's mouth fell slightly open, but she caught herself, clamping it shut. Didn't move, didn't change expression, though a faint flicker passed behind her eyes. Her assignment, Vance pressed, is to evaluate this program. Correct, replied. She is conducting a comprehensive assessment of training methodologies, psychological resilience, and instructor conduct. The circumstances of her exposure were not part of the operational plan. No, sir, Blackwood admitted. I recognized the insignia during inspection. Understandable, said. But now that she has been identified, protocol requires discretion. Operative remains undercover until extraction can be arranged. Her status is not to be disclosed outside this room. Yes, sir, Blackwood replied. And the report, Vance asked. It will be completed and submitted through secure channels, said. But I expect particular attention on Petty Officer's methods. His name has crossed my desk more than once. Manning's face hardened, though she said nothing. Blackwood hesitated. Admiral, should he be informed? Negative, his voice snapped. Operational security remains paramount. He is not to know her true status under any circumstances. Do you understand? Yes, sir. The line clicked, dead. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, Vance leaned forward. Well, that confirms it. You're Lieutenant. Manning blinked. Lieutenant. Blackwood's eyes narrowed, but his words had left no room for doubt. Sat the smallest shift, but the change was palpable. Gone was the illusion of the weary recruit. Her stillness was sharper now, her silence purposeful. I'll continue the cover until extraction, said evenly. And you'll continue playing the role of struggling recruit, Vance added. Yes, ma'am. Manning shook her head. So all this time, the failures, the hesitation, the mud, the push-ups, it was an act. His gaze flicked to her. Not everything. Some of it was real. That's the point. You don't measure a system by false pressure. You measure it by what happens when the cracks are real. Manning didn't answer. Her jaw tightened. Dismissed, Blackwood said finally. Stood, saluted, and left. The door closed, leaving the officers in uneasy silence. She's young, Manning said at last. Too young. She's, Vance countered. Age is irrelevant. But Manning's words lingered, even as the conversation shifted. Outside rejoined her platoon. Stare cut through her immediately. Nice of you to join us, recruit, he drawled, his tone heavy with sarcasm. I trust your meeting with the commander was enlightening. Yes, sir, she replied, her expression calm. Care to share with the class what was so important? The commander asked me not to discuss it, sir. A ripple of murmurs swept through the room. Jaw flexed. He masked it quickly, but Manning, watching from the back, caught the flicker of suspicion in his eyes. Then you'll stay after hours, said smoothly, since you clearly need remedial instruction. Yes, sir. The day moved on. Classroom drills, weapons practice, tactical exercises. Maintained her cover, struggling just enough to remain believable, but every now and then her mask slipped, a perfect grouping of shots on the range, a moment of calm control when others faltered. The recruits noticed. Whispers grew. Wilson muttered under her breath as they packed gear. Nobody shoots like that on accident. Sneered, she's a plant. I told you, some kind of spy. Jackson only shook his head. Or maybe she's just tougher than the rest of us. By evening, the tension had thickened. Kept her back. The classroom was empty, the blinds drawn. His packing was sharp, his voice low, laced with something more than professional disdain. I don't know what game you're playing, he said, but I don't like it. Secret meetings with the commander, Manning hovering around you. You think I don't notice? She stood at attention, silent. Answer me. There's nothing to say, sir. His face flushed. Don't get smart with me. I've seen recruits like you before, privileged, protected, thinking rules don't apply, but tomorrow we'll see. Tomorrow you'll prove to everyone what you really are. His words hung like a threat. What happens tomorrow, sir? "The underwater evacuation drill," he said, his smile razor-sharp. "Let's see how long you last when the chamber floods." Her eyes met his, not fear, not defiance, just calm assessment, and it unsettled him. "Dismissed," he snapped. That night the barracks were restless. Whispers about the meeting, about the commander, about what tomorrow might bring. Sat on her bunk, writing in a small leather-bound book, her assessment notes, masked as a journal. Wilson stirred, watching her in the dim light. "You can't sleep either." "Just finishing thoughts." Wilson hesitated. "Everyone's talking about you, about Blackwood. They think he recognized you." Didn't answer. Wilson leaned closer. "Listen, whatever going on tomorrow isn't a joke. He's been talking about it all week. He's got something planned for you. He had a recruit hospitalized last cycle. Guy almost drowned." Pen stilled. "Thank you." "Just be careful," Wilson muttered, rolling back over. Finished her note with one final line. "Tomorrow ends it, one way or another." Sleep never came. Dawn broke blood-red, the ocean horizon painted in crimson and gold. The recruits assembled outside the concrete block of the underwater training facility. The air was heavy with nerves, the kind of fear that clung like humidity. Paced before them, hands clasped behind his back. "Today," he declared, "we separate sailors from civilians." His eyes found instantly. "Since you're so confident in the water, you'll demonstrate first." With his face blanched, he was the weakest swimmer in the platoon. Manning immediately stepped forward. "Sir, protocol pairs strong with weak for safety. Perhaps should be paired with Wilson." "I'm aware of protocol," Petty Officer cut her off. "This is my training evolution, and gear up." Didn't protest. She simply turned, moving to the racks of wetsuits and masks. Followed, his hands shaking as he adjusted the straps. "I'm not good at this," he admitted under his breath. "If I panic—" "You won't," interrupted, her voice steady as she checked his equipment with practiced efficiency. "Focus on your breathing. Follow me." He blinked at her. "Since when are you the expert? You nearly drowned last week." "Did I?" she asked softly, tightening his harness with calm precision. He stared at her, unsettled, but before he could respond, his voice barked across the deck. "Time to get wet, recruits." The heavy steel door of the chamber opened. The concrete swallowed them whole. The clang of the hatch echoed behind them as it sealed shut. And as the water began to pour in, rising steadily around their boots, knew. This wasn't a drill anymore. This was a test. And someone, maybe all of them, might not walk out. How long can someone hold their breath when the world is trying to drown them? The chamber was nothing more than a box of reinforced concrete, 15 feet square, with steel fittings that mimicked a submarine's interior. Metal hatches, simulated control panels, a ceiling hatch that promised escape. But the promise was hollow. Knew it the second she scanned the room. One breathing apparatus, not two, one, a deliberate shortage, a trap engineered by the man watching from behind the glass. His face was pale as chalk as the water rose around their ankles. "There's only one," he whispered. "We'll share it," answered calm as stone. "That's not regulation." Her eyes cut toward him. "Focus." Water climbed to their knees, their waists, their chests. It was rising faster now, valves open to maximum flow. From the other side of the observation window, stood with arms folded, his expression unreadable. Manning hovered nearby, her eyes flicking constantly between the recruits and the override controls. Something about her posture said she already suspected what was happening. "Deep breath now," ordered. The water swallowed them whole. The world became muffled silence, the press of weight against skin, the sting of chlorinated salt in their eyes. Oriented quickly, scanning the chamber with the efficiency of someone who had done this before. She spotted the apparatus mounted on the far wall and swam hard for it, pulling along. She purged the regulator, inhaled once, then pressed it to his mouth. His panicked eyes widened as air filled his lungs again. She took it back, drew another steady breath, passed it again. They began their rhythm, buddy breathing, 40 seconds for him, 20 for her, enough to survive, enough to move. Guided him to the hatch, not in the ceiling but offset, half hidden behind a control panel. Wrong placement, wrong design, another deliberate modification. Pulled at the wheel lock, straining. It didn't budge. He shook his head, bubbles escaping his lips. She signaled again. He tried, muscles trembling, lungs burning, before passing the regulator back. Took one breath, then pressed it immediately into his hands again. Not a second wasted. She braced herself against the wall, set her feet, and grabbed the wheel. With deliberate force, she twisted. Her movements were smooth, precise, stronger than anyone had seen her before. The wheel groaned, shifted, then resisted again. Too tight, over-torqued. Doing. Her jaw tight, she twisted again, a quarter turn, then another. His eyes widened. This wasn't the fumbling, fragile recruit he'd mocked for 2 weeks. This was something else, someone else. Through the observation glass, his brows knit, his smirk faltered. Manning stepped closer, her hand hovering over the emergency override. The hatch groaned open, scrambled through, regulator still in hand, lungs heaving with desperate air. Stayed behind, pushing him first, bracing the hatch so it didn't slam shut again. But then it happened. The regulator sputtered, stopped, the air supply cut. Froze, her head snapping toward the observation window. His hand was on a secondary panel. He wasn't even trying to hide it. His eyes locked on hers through the glass, daring her to break. The hatch above began closing. Slowly, inexorably, the wheel grinding shut. Sabotage! Manning shouted, her lips moving furiously behind the glass. She shoved at, reaching for the override. He blocked her with one arm, pointing at the protocol manual, mouthing something like, "stress element." But saw it, the truth. He wasn't testing her, he was trying to kill her. She had seconds. Was through, safe in the dry chamber above, banging helplessly at the hatch as it narrowed. The regulator was dead. The hatch was closing. And the air in her lungs was running out. She made her choice. Kicking hard, she propelled herself toward the observation window, pressed her palms flat against the glass, her eyes locking onto us. And then slowly, deliberately, she removed her mask. Not with panic, not with struggle, with calm. Her expression was steady, measured, controlled. She lifted the regulator, useless now, and held it against the glass, then pointed to the valve, then to him. The message was unmistakable. "I know what you did." For the first time, flinched. Behind him, Manning shoved past, slamming her hand on the emergency override. Alarms blared, valves groaned open, water roared out. But didn't wait. She kicked upward, powerful strokes carrying her to the hatch as it narrowed to a hand's width. Her lungs burned, but she didn't flinch, didn't falter. With one last surge, she forced herself through, scraping her shoulders against steel as the hatch groaned closed behind her. She emerged into the dry chamber, water streaming from her wetsuit, her chest heaving with deep, controlled breaths. Stared at her wide-eyed, his face pale with shock. "What the hell was that?" he gasped. "How did you?" Before he could finish, the door burst open. Manning stormed in, fury written across every line of her face. Behind her came, his expression dark, dangerous. "Recruit," he began, his voice sharp. "You violated protocol by removing your mask underwater. That kind of recklessness could—" "That's enough, Petty Officer." The voice was new, commanding, deceptively calm. Every head turned. Commander Blackwood entered, and beside him Captain Vance. But it was the third figure who froze the room. A tall man, silver-haired, his uniform heavy with authority, the 3 stars of a vice admiral glinting on his. The recruit snapped instinctively to attention. Even Manning stiffened. only hesitated, his mouth open in shock. Admiral Blackwood announced unnecessarily. The Admiral's gaze swept the room, cold and assessing before locking onto. "I've heard a great deal about your training methods, Petty Officer." Swallowed hard. "Sir, yes, sir, I maintain the highest." "Do those standards include cutting the air supply to a recruit's emergency apparatus?" His voice was calm, too calm. Color drained from his face. "Sir, I was simply introducing an additional." "To what?" Pressed, his tone like steel. "To deliberately endanger a trainee, to indulge a personal vendetta." "Sir, I—" "Captain Vance, Commander Blackwood, Petty Officer Manning, did any of you witness his actions?" Manning stepped forward immediately. "Yes, sir. I saw him disable the regulator and block access to the override. He knowingly endangered both recruits." His gaze sharpened. "Is this true, Petty Officer?" His voice cracked. "She's not cut out for this program, sir. I was proving." "You decided to drown her to make your point." "She wasn't going to drown." "The safety team you prevented from acting," Manning snapped. The silence that followed was damning. His expression hardened. "Petty Officer, you are relieved of duty. Effective immediately. Report to the security office for processing. You will remain confined pending formal investigation." The color drained completely from his face. "Sir, you can't." That was not a suggestion. Two naval security officers stepped forward. "Escort him out," ordered. His protests died in his throat as they seized his arms, dragging him from the chamber. His eyes flicked to once more, burning with rage, with disbelief. She didn't flinch, she didn't move. She stood at attention, water dripping from her suit, her gaze steady. Turned to her. "Recruit, are you injured?" "No, sir." For a long moment he studied her, and in his eyes was something no one else could read, something private, something old. Then he turned away. "Today's training is canceled. Recruits return to barracks." The platoon dispersed, whispering furiously, their eyes darting between and the Admiral. Questions buzzed in the air, unanswered. Glanced once more at Blackwood and Vance. "We need to talk, privately." Knew what came next. Her cover was gone. And the real story was about to begin. Why did the Admiral ask her to sit when everyone else stood? The room was stark, windowless, humming faintly with the low buzz of a secure signal jammer. Entered with precise steps, water still drying in her hair, her uniform pressed but damp from the flooded chamber. Admiral sat at the head of the table, his silver hair catching the overhead light. To his right, Commander Blackwood leaned forward, arms folded. To his left, Captain Vance, her expression tight, unreadable. Manning lingered near the wall, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to be excluded. "Lieutenant," began, his voice steady, "take a seat." The word landed heavy. Manning's eyes flicked instantly to, widening with shock. "Lieutenant, not recruit, not trainee, lieutenant." Lowered herself into the chair, back straight, movements measured. "Yes, sir." The Admiral studied her. Not as a commander studies a subordinate, but as a man measuring weight against memory. "I served with your father," he said quietly. "Silent Harbor Wayfinder incident. He was a brilliant officer, respected, feared sometimes. He carried the insignia long before you." "Yes, sir," said. Her voice was calm, but something shifted behind her eyes. A flicker, a wound reopening. "He's gone," continued. "It wasn't a question." "Yes, sir," she answered. 2 years ago. Operation not recorded in official channels. Casualty report sealed." Blackwood's jaw tightened. Vance's eyes softened, almost imperceptibly. "Your father was one of the last to volunteer for deep shadow work," said. "But no one knew the program had expanded to offspring." Met his gaze. "We were raised in it, sir, prepared, conditioned from adolescence. You don't build overnight." Manning shifted, her voice breaking into the silence. "Conditioned, you mean?" Turned her head slowly. "Every drill, every failure, every scar. None of it was accidental. For a moment no one spoke. Then Vance's voice cut through, sharp. Then why are you here? Why insert you into a recruit program at all? Why not embed you directly in field intelligence? His answer was steady, deliberate. Because systems rot from the inside, evaluation requires immersion, measures not only individuals but culture, integrity, resilience, weak links. Her eyes flicked toward the sealed door, the memory of smirk still fresh. Weakness nearly drowned me today. That is the culture Admiral asked me to expose. All eyes turned to the Admiral. He didn't deny it. Yes, said at last. His tone was grave, heavy. That is the truth. Too many training commands are breeding cruelty, not resilience. Egos, not leaders, exists to measure that. Manning's face hardened. So she's what? An undercover inspector. His lips curved faintly. Not humor, not pride, something colder. More than that, I'm the report you can't ignore. Silence stretched heavy. Then Blackwood spoke, his voice low, thoughtful. You're good, too good. Everything about you has been calibrated. But what I saw in that chamber wasn't just training, it was survival, real, not manufactured. That wasn't a report, that was you. His gaze dropped for the first time, a rare crack in her armor. I don't fake the drowning part, sir. Her voice was soft now, almost a whisper. That's the price. They make sure you bleed for every lesson. The room went still. Broke the silence. Your cover is blown here, that much is obvious. Word will spread. Recruits will talk. We can't contain it, which means we have to decide, do we extract you now or let the fire run its course? Vance shook her head instantly. Extraction. Every second she stays increases exposure, thrives on secrecy. Once the emblem is recognized, the program is compromised. But Blackwood leaned forward. No, pulling her out now makes it worse. Recruits already whisper. They'll imagine 100 conspiracies. Leaving her allows control of the narrative. And frankly, he glanced at, the platoon still needs her. After today, some of them will follow her whether she wears bars or not. Manning's brow furrowed. Follow her. They still blame her for push-ups and extra duty. No, Blackwood countered. They did, but they saw her today. Calm, controlled, not panic. That leaves an impression deeper than humiliation. Vance's lips tightened. You're arguing to let her remain as a pseudo-recruit. That's dangerous. She's dangerous, Blackwood corrected softly. The Admiral finally raised his hand. The room fell silent instantly. She stays, said. His voice was iron. Not as a recruit, not as an inspector, she stays as both, embedded, invisible and undeniable. Lifted her gaze, her voice was quiet but steady. Yes, sir. Leaned back, exhaling slowly. Your father once told me something in the dead of night after Wayfinder. He said, you don't measure a soldier when they fire their weapon. You measure them when they don't. His eyes locked onto hers. You proved that today, and that's why you'll finish what he started. His breath caught for just a second, barely perceptible, but enough. Yes, sir. The meeting ended without ceremony. Manning left first, her steps brisk, her expression unreadable. Vance followed, her gaze lingering on just long enough to suggest a question left unasked. Blackwood stayed until the Admiral dismissed him, his expression carrying a weight of its own. And then it was only and. For a long time, neither spoke. You carry him in you, said finally. Every move, every silence, but you also carry the burden he couldn't finish. That's heavier than most men could bear. His voice was quiet. I don't know if I'm enough. The Admiral studied her. The day you stop asking that is the day you fail. Doubt isn't weakness, Lieutenant. It's proof you still measure the cost. Her eyes dropped. The faintest tremor moved through her hands before she stilled them against her knees. I see him every time I close my eyes, she admitted softly. The way he looked when he said goodbye, he knew he wasn't coming back, and he passed it to me. The mission, the silence, the mark. She touched the back of her collar unconsciously. where the ink lived beneath fabric. His voice softened just slightly. The mark doesn't define you, the choices do. Her breath trembled once, then steadied. Yes, sir. When she left the room, the corridor outside buzzed faintly with the noise of recruits. Whispers rippled as she passed, their eyes following her, some with suspicion, some with curiosity, a few, for the first time, with respect. She kept walking. Back in the barracks, approached cautiously. His voice was low, almost ashamed. You saved my life in there. You would have done the same, replied. No, he said, shaking his head. I wouldn't have, I panicked, I froze, you didn't. Studied him, everyone freezes. The difference is what you do next. Swallowed, looking away, but something in him shifted, the tone of his voice, the way he didn't sneer this time. Later that night, Wilson leaned over from her bunk. What are you? Was quiet for a long time, then, just someone trying to finish what was started. The room went still. She lay awake again, staring at the ceiling. Her father's voice returned, not in memory this time, but in echo. There will come a moment when you'll have to decide whether silence protects or silence betrays. When it comes, choose carefully. The moment was closer now, she could feel it. And when it arrived, there would be no going back. Why did the barracks fall silent the moment she walked in? Paused at the threshold, her uniform sharp, her steps precise, but the silence was deafening. Conversations that had filled the room just seconds earlier dissolved into whispers, then into nothing. Every pair of eyes followed her, some curious, some wary, a few resentful. Wilson looked up from her bunk, hesitant but searching, as if trying to reconcile the fragile girl who'd once stumbled in the pool with the calm figure who had swum through sabotage without flinching. Shifted uneasily, guilt shadowing his face. Jackson sat rigid, his jaw clenched, unwilling to admit he was watching her at all. And then came the voice. You don't belong here. It was, speaking louder than he intended, trying to mask his fear with bravado. Met his eyes calmly. Say what you mean. You're not one of us, he snapped. You're something else. Whatever that is, you're not a recruit, you're a plant. The room stirred. Some nodded, some muttered. The word hung in the air like a stain. Manning stepped forward, her tone sharp. Enough. She pulled you through that hatch when you couldn't even breathe. Maybe think about that before you open your mouth. His face flushed. I didn't ask her to. You didn't have to, Manning shot back. She did it anyway. His voice cut through the tension, calm but steady. It doesn't matter what you think I am, I'm here. Same training, same barracks, same standard. No, insisted. Not the same, you're not failing like the rest of us. You're performing, testing, judging, we're just part of your report. The accusation stung more than she expected, because it wasn't entirely wrong. Didn't answer, silence was safer, but in the quiet something else took root, distrust. That night the recruits whispered after lights out. Spy inspector. The words blended with rumor until they were indistinguishable from truth. Only Wilson's voice cut through the darkness once, soft, she's not the enemy. But the words didn't silence the others. By morning the tension was palpable. Drills felt heavier. Marching lines wavered as recruits stole glances at her. Even Jackson, the steady one, gave her looks filled with quiet suspicion. Manning stayed close, intervening subtly when comments sharpened into hostility. But even she couldn't erase the divide. Was no longer one of them. She was something else. And yet, when they hit the range again, the divide cracked in unexpected ways. Fired with clean precision, grouping than any recruit. Wilson, 2 stations down, faltered under pressure, her shots scattering. She cursed under her breath, lowering her rifle. Stepped over, her voice low. Slow down, breathe between shots, not during. Wilson glanced at her, skeptical. Since when do you give tips? Since you asked with your face, replied. Wilson almost laughed, shaking her head, but she adjusted her stance, followed the advice, and her next shots tightened. Watching scowled, but even he couldn't deny the improvement. Later in hand-to-hand drills paired against Jackson, he was taller, stronger, broader. He grinned as if victory was assured. But when the whistle blew, she moved with precision, sidestepping his charge, leveraging his weight against him. In 3 movements, he was flat on his back, pinned. Gasps rippled. Jackson's grin faded, replaced with something else. Not anger, not shame, respect. For the first time, the balance shifted. Suspicion didn't vanish, but respect began to creep in. That evening, Manning cornered her outside the mess hall. "You know you're changing them, right?" Shook her head. "I'm not trying to." "Exactly," Manning replied. "That's why it works. You're not proving anything, you're just being they see it." His eyes lowered. "Some of them don't." "We'll come around," Manning said firmly. "Jackson already has. Wilson trusts you. Respect is contagious. Even suspicion can't fight it forever." Wanted to believe her, but the truth was more complicated. Because while recruits debated her loyalty, she felt the shift in another direction. The officers, the silence in Blackwood's gaze, the weight in Vance's stare, the way his presence lingered like a shadow even when he wasn't there. Something was moving. 2 nights later, Manning woke her in the dark, not with words, with a touch on her shoulder, urgent, silent. Rose without question, slipping into boots, following her into the corridor. The base was quiet, but Manning's pace was brisk, leading her not toward the barracks exit, but deeper into restricted halls. "Where are we going?" whispered. "You'll see." They descended into a lower deck hadn't been assigned to. Manning swiped a coded key at a steel door. Inside, the air was colder. Screens glowed faint blue against the dark, filled with grainy satellite images and encrypted comms. And waiting at the table, Blackwood, Vance, and Admiral. Froze. "Close the door," ordered. Manning obeyed. The Admiral gestured to the table. "Sit." Her posture straight, her heartbeat steady despite the questions clawing inside her. Vance wasted no time. "We have a problem. Wasn't the only program to leave ghosts behind. We've intercepted chatter, external, not domestic. Someone knows about you, about the emblem." His jaw tightened. "Who?" "Unknown," Vance said, "but they referenced the Trident Tandanker specifically. That means they've seen you." Blackwood leaned in. "This isn't rumor in the barracks. This is outside the wire. Someone's watching." Manning looked between them, unsettled. "You mean surveillance here?" "Possibly," Vance said. His voice cut through, heavy. "No, not possibly, definitely. The leak is real." Stomach coiled, but she didn't let it show. "What's the directive, sir?" she asked. "Stay and roll," said. "Continue integration, but eyes open. Trust no one outside this room, and if you're approached—" "I neutralize," finished softly. Vance studied her. "You don't flinch at that." Met her gaze. "You didn't recruit me for flinching." Silence followed. Blackwood finally exhaled. "So we let her stay visible, knowing someone's circling." "It draws them out," said flatly. "Better she's bait under our watch than prey in the dark." The word bait didn't sting. She'd been trained for it, conditioned for it. But Manning's face shifted, horror mixing with protest. "You can't just—" Raised a hand. "Petty Officer, you're dismissed." "No," Manning said sharply, her voice trembling but firm. "If she's bait, then she's not alone. I'll stay on her flank, whatever happens." Vance's brows lifted. "That's not your call." Manning's jaw set. "Doesn't matter, it's my choice." Turned to her slowly. For the first time, her calm mask cracked, just a little. The faintest flicker of gratitude moved in her eyes. Considered, then nodded once. "Fine, but you follow her lead. If she says move, you move. If she says run, you run." Manning didn't hesitate, understood. The meeting ended without ceremony. They left through separate exits, scattering like shadows. Back in the barracks, lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The tattoo burned on her back, not with pain but with memory. Her father's voice returned, echoing in the stillness. They'll come for the mark, they always do. When they do, don't fight for survival, fight for meaning. She closed her eyes, her breath steady. The silence outside was heavy, too heavy. Somewhere in the darkness, beyond the wire, something was watching. Waiting. And the game she thought she was playing inside the safety of a training ground was already spilling into the world beyond. Why did the alarm start just after midnight? Was already awake when the klaxon ripped through the barracks. Sleep had been elusive for weeks. Her eyes snapped open at the first wail of sirens, her boots hitting the floor before the others had even stirred. The room erupted into chaos. Recruits stumbling, shouting, fumbling for gear. Swore loudly, Jackson barked questions no one could answer. Wilson's hands shook as she pulled on her jacket. Manning's voice cut through the noise. On your feet, formation outside, move, move, move. His heartbeat was steady, not fast. Her body knew the rhythm of alarms too well. This wasn't a drill. By the time they spilled into the night air, the base was alive with motion. Floodlights blazed across the perimeter. The smell of salt and oil clung to the humid air. Helicopter blades thumped in the distance, not lifting off but holding, waiting. Commander Blackwood stood at the parade square, his face hard as iron. Captain Vance was beside him, issuing rapid commands into a handheld radio. Security personnel moved with grim efficiency, weapons loaded, eyes scanning the darkness. Listen up, Blackwood's voice boomed across the recruits. This is not an exercise. Perimeter breach confirmed on the east fence. Possible infiltration. A ripple of panic moved through the recruits. Manning barked them into line again, but could feel the current of fear running beneath every movement. Armed intruders, Jackson whispered under his breath. Shut up, snapped, but his voice carried no confidence. His eyes scanned the horizon. Beyond the floodlights, the jungle stretched dark and heavy. Shadows shifted where they shouldn't. She could almost feel eyes staring back. Vance lowered her radio, her tone clipped. 2 hostiles neutralized near the wire, at least one more unaccounted for. Movement suggests scouting, not full assault. Scouting for what? Manning asked, but her voice was drowned out as Blackwood barked fresh orders. Recruits will be secured in the mess hall under guard. No exceptions. Petty Officer Manning oversee. Manning stiffened. Yes, sir. Didn't move. Her instincts screamed. This wasn't random infiltration. This was targeted. As the recruits began filing toward the mess hall, Cott's silhouette emerging from the command building. Even at midnight, his uniform was immaculate. He moved straight toward Blackwood and Vance, his voice low but urgent. She couldn't hear the words. She didn't need to. She saw the Admiral's eyes flick once directly at her. Her suspicion hardened into certainty. The intruders weren't here for the base. They were here for her. Inside the mess hall, recruits huddled at long tables, guarded by armed sailors. Manning paced near the door, tension written in every step. Broke the silence first. This is insane. Who attacks a training base? There's nothing here worth hitting. Wilson's gaze flicked too. Unless there is. The room fell quiet. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. Met their stares without flinching, but inside the weight pressed heavier. Secrets didn't stay buried forever. Manning noticed the shift, her voice sharp. Enough, eyes front. You're recruits, not analysts. Let command handle this. But her eyes found too, and in them was the unspoken truth. She knew. Minutes crawled like hours. Outside, muffled shouts, distant cracks of gunfire. The base was under siege, but only at the edges, controlled, contained. And then silence, too sudden, too complete. His hand twitched toward the knife she'd tucked into her boot long ago. The lights cut out. Gasps erupted in the darkness. A chair clattered to the floor. Someone swore loudly. Then glass shattered. A figure moved through the window, swift and silent. Not a recruit, not a guard. An intruder. The sailor nearest the door shouted, fumbling for his rifle. A single suppressed shot cracked through the night. He dropped instantly, blood blooming dark against his uniform. Screams erupted. Recruits dove under tables, froze in place, eyes wide with terror. Moved. She was across the room in seconds, her hand snapping to the intruder's wrist, twisting the suppressed pistol free. The man hissed in pain, striking with his other hand, but she ducked the blow, driving her knee into his ribs. He staggered back, but not far. Trained, professional, this wasn't a random raider. The pistol clattered across the floor, sliding under a table. Wilson dove for it, hands shaking but determined. "Gun," she shouted, tossing it toward. In one fluid motion, caught it, pivoted, and fired. The intruder dropped instantly, his body crumpling against the wall. For a moment, silence. Then Manning's voice, sharp as steel, "Everyone stay down." More shadows moved outside. Eyes darted to the broken window. She saw them, at least 3 more, slipping through the floodlights, using the chaos as cover. "Back wall," she barked. The guards barely had time to turn before the next wave hit. Gunfire tore through the mess hall windows, shattering wood and glass. Recruits screamed, diving for the floor. Pulled Manning down behind an overturned table, bullets shredding the air above them. "They're not here for the base," hissed over the gunfire. "They're here for me." Manning's eyes widened. "Then what?" "We move." Rose firing 2 precise shots through the window. One intruder fell. Another hesitated, ducking behind cover. "Wilson, Jackson with me," she ordered. The recruits hesitated only a second before scrambling over, fear and adrenaline locking their limbs. Tone sharpened. "You want to live, you move now." They obeyed. Together they pushed toward the kitchen door, leading, Manning covering their flank. The guards tried to regroup, but the intruders were too fast, too prepared. Shoved the recruits through the kitchen, her eyes scanning for exits. The back door loomed, locked with a heavy bar. She drove her shoulder into it once, twice, until the wood splintered and gave way. They spilled into the night air, the humid heat wrapping around them. Shouts echoed across the base. Floodlights strobed. Somewhere, an explosion cracked against the far fence. But's eyes stayed fixed on the tree line. Because she saw him. Not just another intruder, a figure standing still, half in shadow, half in light, watching. Waiting. Her blood ran cold. The insignia on his arm was faint but unmistakable. The same trident and anchor. Her mark. The man didn't move, didn't raise a weapon. He simply stood, his gaze locked on hers as if measuring her from a distance. And then he smiled. The kind of smile that promised she wasn't the only one carrying ghosts. His grip tightened on the pistol. But before she could move, Manning pulled at her arm. "We have to go." The tree line swallowed him whole. Turned, driving the recruits forward, her pulse steady despite the storm raging in her chest. They weren't just coming for her. They were her. Wasn't dead, it had. And somewhere in the darkness, the line between ally and enemy had blurred beyond recognition. Why did the man in the tree line wear her father's mark? The question clawed at as she led Manning and the recruits through the chaos. Sirens blared, searchlights swept the compound, boots thundered against pavement, but all of it blurred behind that single image. The trident and anchor, her tattoo, her father's tattoo. It wasn't supposed to exist anywhere else, not outside the shadows, not like that. They reached the vehicle bay, slipping into the steel-end concrete shelter where Humvees lined up in dark rows. Manning forced the recruits into cover, her voice clipped. "Stay here. Don't move unless I say." Finally found his voice. "We're not soldiers, we're." Quiet, Manning snapped. Moved deeper into the bay, scanning every shadow, every corner. Her instincts buzzed. The intruders hadn't vanished. They'd shifted, hunting, not retreating. Her voice was low. Manning, they're not here to destroy the base. They're here to extract. Extract who? Met her eyes. The answer was obvious. Manning's jaw clenched. Then we don't let them. The words hung heavy. Movement. A figure dropped from the rafters above, hitting the concrete floor silently. Spun, pistol raised, but froze. It was him, the man from the tree line. Closer now, his features clear. Hard lines, cold eyes, a face carved by years of training, discipline, and something darker. He raised his hand slowly, palms open, not surrender, invitation. His voice was deep, steady, daughter of the Viper. Her pulse jumped at the name, her father's call sign, known only in whispers. You shouldn't know that, she said, her tone flat. I know more than that, the man replied. I know the truth about Silent Harbor, about Wayfinder, about what your father really died for. Manning's rifle clicked, her sights locked on him. One step closer and you're done. He didn't flinch, his eyes stayed on. She won't shoot, neither will you, because you need answers. Her grip tightened on the pistol. He wasn't wrong. Talk, she said. He took a single step forward. Your father didn't fall in the dark. He was silenced by the same command that trained him, by the same admiral you serve now. The words cut sharp, too sharp. Manning shook her head. He's playing you, don't listen. But's chest was tight, her breath shallow, because the man wasn't lying, not entirely. She remembered her father's last night, the look in his eyes, the unfinished sentence. If it comes from inside, trust only what you see, never what you're told. Her pistol didn't waver, but her mind spun. Who are you? She demanded. The man's lips curved faintly. Like you, but unbound. We saw the rod inside and cut free. Your father tried to, he failed, you don't have to. Behind them whispered, trembling, what the hell is he talking about? No one answered. The man extended his arm slowly, rolling up his sleeve. The tattoo was there, inked into skin. Same emblem, same lines, but beneath it fresh marks twisted, added later, jagged strokes crossing the anchor. Altered, corrupted. We are what comes next, he said, not their shadows, our own. Manning's voice was ice. You're terrorists. We're free, his gaze locked on. So are you if you want to be. The silence stretched. His finger rested on the trigger, but her hand didn't move. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. The mark doesn't define you. The choices do. Behind her, boots thundered. Reinforcements stormed into the bay, Blackwood, Vance, armed security flooding the room. Floodlights snapped on, blinding. The man didn't flinch, he smiled. Choose, he said softly, their chain or your own. Gunfire erupted. The intruder moved with impossible speed, diving into shadows, returning fire with suppressed bursts. Guards fell. Chaos exploded. Manning shoved Wilson and behind cover, shouting. Jackson grabbed a fallen rifle, firing blindly, terror in his eyes. Tracked the intruder through the chaos, her body calm even as the world tore apart around her. She saw the path, she saw his escape. And she made her choice. With sharp precision, she cut across the bay, intercepting his line. He turned, saw her blocking the exit, his weapon lifted. But she was faster. Her pistol barked once. The shot struck his shoulder, spinning him back. Not fatal, deliberate. He stumbled, his eyes wide, not in pain, but in recognition. You're your father's daughter, he breathed, measured, cold, but not theirs. Before the guards could close in, he tossed a small object across the floor. It skittered, stopping at its boots, a data drive. Then smoke flooded the bay, thick and blinding. By the time it cleared, he was gone. The reinforcements fanned out, shouting, searching, but knew. He'd vanished back into the night. Her hand tightened around the drive, small, cold, heavy with truth. Blackwood stormed forward, eyes blazing. What the hell just happened? Vance's gaze fell on the drive. She has something. Manning stepped between them instinctively. She's not the enemy. Then what is she? Blackwood demanded. His voice was calm, steady. I'm the one who has to finish this. The Admiral arrived moments later, his face unreadable as his eyes fell on her hand. On the drive. His words were quiet, too quiet. Where did you get that? Met his gaze, and for the first time she didn't look away. From the other. The silence was absolute. Later in the debriefing room, the drive sat on the table between them. Manning at her side, Blackwood and Vance opposite, the Admiral at the head. No one spoke as the data flickered onto the screen. Files, reports, names. Silent Harbor, Wayfinder, dozens of missions listed as classified beyond clearance. And at the center, flagged with a black emblem, Captain Elia's. Her father. The files told a story no one wanted to admit. Missions buried not because of failure, but because of politics. Soldiers silenced not for mistakes, but for knowing too much. Her father hadn't fallen, he'd been erased. His breath was steady, but her hands curled into fists. Manning's voice broke the silence. She deserves the truth. His jaw tightened. His silence was louder than words. Finally he spoke. The truth isn't clean, it never is. Your father chose the mission over himself. He knew the risks. He carried them anyway, and so do you. His voice was soft but sharp. Did you order it? The Admiral's eyes held hers, cold, heavy. I buried it, he admitted. Because I had to. Because sometimes survival of the whole demands silence of the few. The words were steel, but they rang hollow. Rose slowly. Her hand brushed the tattoo under her collar, her father's mark, her burden. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the room. Silence isn't loyalty, and it isn't survival. Sometimes silence is betrayal. The room froze. No one spoke, no one moved. She turned, walking out, Manning at her side. The drive was still in her pocket, heavy, alive. Outside, dawn broke over the compound. The recruits stood scattered across the square, some still shaken, some defiant, but all watching her. Stepped forward, his voice hesitant. You stayed, you fought, why? Met his eyes. Because you don't leave people behind. No lecture, no justification, just truth. The recruits looked at her differently then, not as a spy, not as a ghost, as one of them. But deeper than that, she knew the mission wasn't done. The shadows weren't gone. The drive in her pocket pulsed like a heartbeat, reminding her of the choice still ahead. As the sun lifted over the horizon, she exhaled slowly. Her father's words returned, clear now. The measure of a soldier isn't when they fire, it's when they don't. She closed her eyes. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.